Hello everybody, it's Writing Tutor Sarah here, and today we're going to talk about summarizing. So without further ado, let's talk about how to summarize our texts that we're reading. So, as always, I love a good meme. So, this is an accurate representation of me when I'm trying to write a summary. I'm very fancy with my the. My the is very detailed. And sometimes, I'd like to argue, sometimes we don't want too much detail in our summary. So, here is a hot take from one of the professors I've worked with before. This is Professor Smith's hot take. A summary is a fairly simple and straightforward process. You may have written many before and know that it involves these key components. So, you're going to start by writing down one sentence in your own words that conveys the main idea of the work you're summarizing. Start the sentence using the name of the author and the title of the article. The History of Olives, author Gwendolyn Author Gwendolyn Costas describes how olives became a key food of the ancient world. That introduces what text you're talking about, what author wrote that text, and a broad description of the main idea of the whole work. Make sure you include author tags to let the reader know that you're talking about what the author said and not your own ideas, so quotes. You're going to use these in every sentence of the summary. So you'll say, stuff like, the writer explains, she states, because you're not the one stating, the author argues, or the author's last name, in this case Costas, shows. You don't want to use actual direct quotes because the summary should be in your own words, and quoting kind of defeats that point. If you want to quote, just quote. You don't need to summarize. Present the ideas neutrally and accurately. In a summary, you don't have any opinions, you're just presenting someone else's ideas. And you want to consider your piece as a whole. Does it flow well? Are there too many details? Not enough? Your summary should be really good and balanced, but it should also be as short and concise as possible. Kind of similar. Same with highlighting what you want to summarize, right? You don't want to highlight the whole textbook, though it feels right. You're like, oh, I need this, I need that, I'll probably need that. We have a different resource about annotating text if you're interested, and that could be helpful to your summary process. So here is Swale's hot take. Swale is another resource that we use. Swale says, to write a good summary, it is important to thoroughly understand the material you're working with. Here are some preliminary steps in writing a summary. You're going to skim the text, noting in your mind the subheadings, if there are subheadings. If there aren't any, you could try and divide the text into sections, right? You're going to consider why you've been assigned this text, what type of text you're dealing with, and potentially that'll help you identify the important information based on what type of text and why you've been assigned it. You're going to read the text. You can highlight some important information. You're going to annotate, because you're going to be annotating your text no matter what, hopefully, please. Again, we have an annotating resource as well, please. You're going to read the text, you're going to highlight that important information, and then in your own words, you're going to write down the main points of each section. If you're annotating right, you should already have those in the margin of your writing. Or you'll have notes separate from the actual writing, but you should have this written down. You're going to write down the key support points for the main topic, but you don't want to add too many minor details. I don't want to hear about his second cousin twice removed. It's not important to what we're trying to prove, right? If it's not important to the point you're making, you don't need that context. You can go through this process as many times as you need to, making changes as appropriate. There are three main requirements to a summary. It should cover the original as a whole. It should be presented in a neutral fashion, much like Professor Smith said. And the summary should be a condensed version, presented in your own words, so it'd be shorter. Don't include any new points that don't appear in the original, so no evaluation or own comments, and be sure to identify your source, much like Smith had mentioned previously. So, one does not simply use someone else's work without citing. So, even if you're writing it in your own words, because it's not your own hot take and it's somebody else's, you need to cite that source with an in-text citation. Again, we have another resource for in-text citations. Please! If you're curious, if you're confused, please go use the in-text citation resource or make an appointment with us. We're so happy to walk you through it. Don't be confused. Don't sit there and just assume you've got this. If you're worried about it, even a little bit, make sure that you're citing your source properly. Come visit us. We don't bite. We promise. Now, who asked the owl for advice? I asked the owl for advice. And here's what the owl had to say. And when I say owl, I mean Purdue Owl. I hope you've met Purdue Owl. Purdue Owl's a great source. So, here's the difference between quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing. Because these are three things people often mix up. When you quote, This is in quotation marks. You are citing you're citing, I can speak, an author's ideas exactly as they appear in the text without changing any of the words. So, word for word, out of the book. That is what it said. And that's why you put the quotation marks, to know that this is completely someone else's writing. Paraphrasing is putting an author's ideas into your own words. So, if this quoting here says, citing an author's ideas exactly as they appear in the text without changing any words, I could paraphrase this by saying the author's idea exactly as it is in the text. This is not word for word, but it's the same concept. So, it's still not my own words. So, you're going to cite all three of these, right? You're going to cite quoting, you're going to cite paraphrasing, you're going to cite summarizing, because these are not your words. But, if you're summarizing, you're not putting the author's ideas into your own words. You're instead condensing the meaning of the entire text or a really lengthy passage into a brief statement that reviews the main ideas in your own words. Usually, this can be tailored to suit your paper, right? You might omit certain details that are important to the story, but not important to your paper. Remember, all three, you need to reference the author. The author needs to be cited, or else you are plagiarizing. We do not want to plagiarize. Please, please. Anyways, when we're summarizing specifically, you could use it for reviewing a long text, speech, or audio. Writing an abstract from, like, you read up a research paper and you go, okay, here's the abstract. Preparing notes for a study guide. Oh, this is the general broad point the textbook's saying. Creating an annotated bibliography where you have to annotate what the assignment is about. So, okay, this source says blah, 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 blah. You're not going to copy paste the whole source into your paper. I sure hope not. If you're answering an essay question, you might need to summarize a point to make your point in a quick essay question on an exam, something you don't have time to actually cite word for word. If you're writing a research paper and you've got a really long piece of research, but you want to give the core concepts, you might summarize what the research paper was about in your research paper. The research was about in your research paper. It might be a research paper within a research paper. Who knows? If you're recording these results of an experiment, saying, oh, experimenter A put the big purple liquid in the big blue liquid, and boom, it went explosion. That would be a summary of what happened in your experiment. Describing the plot of a fictional text or film. In the Percy Jackson book, I don't like the movie. In the Percy Jackson book, Percy Jackson rode a Pegasus. Whoa! That's a summary. It's not a good one, but it's a summary. Some tips. Owl also agrees that you can highlight or underline the thesis, topic sentences, and key supporting details as you read. You can construct an outline or concept map to help you identify main ideas. You should start by writing the main idea. This will help you flow really well and make it really clear to the reader what the writing's about. You want to review the major supporting ideas in your summary. You want to paraphrase. Ooh, paraphrase. I wish I had a paraphrase. You want to paraphrase information by putting it into your own words. If it's word for word, remember that's quoting. That's a little different. It's okay, but for something really long, you want to paraphrase so that it's a little bit shorter. You're going to be brief and succinct so that the summary is both accurate but also shorter than the original text. You only want to cover the most important ideas in a lot less words. You know? You're going to consider your purpose and your audience. How detailed are you going to need to be considering what you're talking about? Are you going to need to define certain terms? Are you writing for yourself or is it for someone else? And if you're writing for yourself, you don't have to worry about the sentence structure, like if you're annotating the text so that you know what it's about. But if you're writing for others, you want to make sure it's professional. You want to present the ideas in the same order the author does. You don't want to jump around the story. If the author has a specific point of view, you can explain what that point of view is in your summary. That's okay, if it's clear. You can leave your personal opinion at the door. We don't want our personal opinions in our summary unless you have to include it. So if the professor says, I want your personal opinion in there, that's one thing. But usually, keep your personal opinion out of it. Leave it at the door. Slam the door in its face. It's just you and the summary having a nice night out with no personal opinions getting in the way. And then you want to provide a citation if the summary is included in formal writing. So if it's in an essay, you better have a citation. If it's your own personal notes, who cares? But if you are turning it in for points or you're publishing it, yada, 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 it better have a citation because those are not your concepts. They belong to somebody who worked very, very hard and deserve to have their work credited. Imagine if somebody used your work and paraphrased and took your ideas as their own. You'd be pretty annoyed. You'd be like, dude, I worked for like ages on that paper. What do you mean you just took it for yourself? That's so annoying. So don't be that guy. Make sure you're citing everything that isn't your own personal thoughts. I love this meme format. Meme when the summary is longer than the source. Uh-oh, we got a little too detailed. Maybe we got some opinions in there, and oh no, our summary is longer than the source. That is an absolute no-no. It's no longer a summary. Then it's an analytic paper. Here are my own personal hot takes. In a normal paper, like your average ye old essay, you want to make sure that you only summarize the plot points that help you prove the point, right? The thing that you're talking about in your prompt. Any extra summary that doesn't prove that purpose should be removed. Skedaddle, get out of here, dog. I don't want you. Because it's not going to help your paper. Your reader's going to get confused, and then it's going to go off topic. You're going to have a run-on sentence. It's going to be a nightmare. So only add the summary that you think you really need so that the reader's on the same page as you. The reader doesn't need to know about your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandma. The reader might need to know about your mother, you know? Not your great-great-great-great-grandmother twice removed. Since all summary in an essay should serve a purpose, it needs to be purposeful, so make sure you follow that summary with some analysis, explaining why and how this proves the point you're wishing to make. Why is this important? Why should I care? Who asked? So just make sure that you're following it up with those hot takes. So summary, no personal opinion. But after you finish the summary, then you open the door back up and you let your personal opinion in. Your personal opinion will then go sit next to the summary and everyone will be happy. They should not be holding hands. They should not be like merged into each other. We don't want that. We want them just sitting next to each other side by side. You can tell that they go together, but you don't want little bits, tiny little bits of your personal opinion in the summary. We want it next to the summary. They don't need to be as long as the book. Please make sure you're only keeping the details needed to understand the main story of the piece. Once again, we don't need to hear about Great-Grandma Jolene. There are very few instances where I want to hear about Great-Grandma Jolene, and most of the time it is not in my essay. You're going to try to break the reading into sections, chapters, paragraphs, and then use these segments to try and determine the main 2 to 3 points of each segment, right? You're like, okay, main point of this paragraph, bugs. Main point of that paragraph, things that look like bugs but are not bugs. Main point of the third paragraph, things that look like bugs, are not bugs, but should be bugs. Yeah, take it a step further. Don't be afraid to reread your text. I know you want to get it over with, but sometimes double checking the reading will have you find those key points you missed the first time. It's okay to read things multiple times. It's not the end of the world. It'll make your argument stronger. It'll make you more of an expert on what you've read. Please don't turn to AI. AI is not good at picking out the important parts of a story. I swear to you. You're going to say, oh, I don't care. Well, if you're writing a paper that's analytical, AI's not going to pick up on all the things you need to know. I'm going to be so real with you. It's also really long-winded because you're like, I need this many words, write it for me, and then it just goes in a loop, and then it just says a bunch of gibberish, and then it's not in chronological order, and it's a nightmare. If you use AI, you also won't learn the skill of summary for your writing tool belt, and you'll probably get a 0 on the assignment. So please be careful. Do not use AI. Use your beautiful, beautiful mind. Please, please, please. Anyways, that's all from me. Get out there and start summarizing. Skedaddle. Here are my war excited. We've got Professor Smith here at Moore Park College. She's beautiful. We love her. We've got my beautiful, beautiful queen, Purdue Owl. Oh, wait, no, that's Owl Excelsior. Oh, my gosh. How could I do this to my beautiful, beautiful queen, Owl Excelsior? Purdue Owl's another great source. I just didn't use them today, I guess. We've got John M. Swales and Christine B. Feet. They're talking about academic writing for graduate students, specifically at the University of Michigan. I think that's great. So sometimes I'll pull some university sources because they're doing the same thing we're doing over here, are they not? So that's all we've got for today. I hope this helped you understand summarizing just a little bit better. Just a friendly reminder, if you're still finding yourself with questions, comments, concerns about summary and other things, you can always find us at the Writing Center because we're here to help you master all things to do with writing and revising your paper. So you could stop by with a draft or a summary for us to look at and with questions about how to tackle anything you need writing-wise. We're always happy to help. For more information on summarizing and other topics, you can also feel free to check out our website for more information. Remember, I mentioned we've got in-text citations, we've got annotating the text. These are things that go very close together with summary that you might want to know more about. We've also got that on our website. We've also got ways to meet with a tutor in case you have more questions, right? In case you need to work with someone one-on-one and the video's just not cutting it. That's okay. I don't take it personal. Anyways, whether it be online, in person, or by email, we're always happy to help. And with that said, we hope to see you soon. Bye!